It's BBC Radio Oxford, 24 minutes to 4 right now, and just a little bit of extra Van Connor right now, who is our movie critic who I normally chat to on a Friday about the movies that are out that particular week. So he is back, but today it's not any old movie. Oh no. He is here, and he is also dressed in the same clothes he went out in last night. I'm assuming that's for effect for me and not the fact you haven't been to bed yet.
Well, I mean, it could just be that I live hard. We don't know. But it's for your amusement. Come on. You know I love to give you a throw. And you were, of course, you could have come down and joined us were it not for the pesky rigours of hosting a daily radio show.
I know.
Of course.
It was too short notice for me to not be here yesterday. Otherwise, I would have been there at the premiere with you last night.
With bells on. I'm sure when Top Gun rolls around, you'll be soon able to find that day off, I'm sure.
I'll find a way. Now, of course, you were there. You went along to the premiere last night. Big film. Everyone's talking about it. I had literally 2 minutes with you before we went to air now and asked you about celebrities, but you were unlucky. You didn't actually see many celebs last night.
No, they segregate us nowadays. So, they keep the riff-raff away from the professional riff-raff and the actual professionals. So that's how it all works now.
Excellent. So talk to me about the night then. I mean, I was told that even the general public or even reviewers like yourselves got to walk along the red carpet. Was that the case for you?
We were at the Leicester Square end. Leicester Square was two sections of it. There was Albert Hall. It was a big festivity. So we were just down the Albert Hall end. They were down the Albert Hall end. We were just down the Leicester Square end. So we did have a red carpet, but as is not quite the full size and scope, as is literally just like a corridor of a cinema.
My goodness, they really didn't look after you that well, did they? Did you get a free drink? Did you get anything?
We did. We got all our booze and we got our James Bond martini flavoured Joe and Sept popcorn, which I didn't even know existed, and now I'm chronically addicted to, which for a man who doesn't do carbs is a very bad thing.
I've never heard of gin and tonic flavoured popcorn ever, but I kind of want to try it now.
I'm not sure what they were, yeah. I think it was dry martini, maybe, something like that.
Amazing. All right, so let's talk about the film. First things first, I've got to ask you, don't obviously give anything away as much as you can.
I wouldn't.
Starting sequence, it's the most important thing in a Bond film. Was this a big starting sequence to really launch it?
No, the big starting sequence of the film, I mean, there is, because you get a sort of prologue and then you get a sort of reintroduction of Bond, where he's been, what he's up to. And actually, weirdly, it's kind of a derivative of one of the Fast and Furious movies now that I think about it. It's a similar sort of sequence, but which I never thought I'd say about a Bond movie. But it's you've seen the sequences in the trailer where he's on the bridge and he's jumping over and he's riding his bicycle and the Aston Martin. And it's this really great, big, cool, and that's how this movie opens. It opens with something that big.
Wow.
And it can only go up. And I do think they deliver. They definitely deliver on the action stakes. Like the scope and the scale and the reason to go and see this on an IMAX screen is all there. Because, Bond, for a good few movies now, has really been sold on this is big, this is visceral, this is cinema. And they live up to that. I will say, though, this opening sequence is great. It's a really great sort of opening set thing. But it's still not quite as cool as the one in the otherwise terrible Spectre, where you had that all single take one where he walked through the Day of the Dead and there was the helicopter. All of that, the single takes, that was brilliant. This is not quite that good, but it's pretty cool.
Okay. Well, obviously, this is the last Daniel Craig as James Bond. Did it get tied up nicely at the end? Would you know that it was the last one he was going to do?
I don't want to say. I think it's a nice ending. It's a nice finale because we never had a Bond finale before. It's never really happened. Yeah. And this is a relatively sort of recent narrative fad. There's things like Christopher Nolan started this with the Batman movies and things like that, where these characters now kind of need to have endings so that you can't just spin them off forever, even though it's Bond and we know it will be spun off forever. So they do sort of give it an ending that makes you think, okay, are we getting any more of these? But are we not? I'm kind of unsure. To be honest with you, I'm unsure what the ending even means. Like,
this sounds like a Marvel ending to me.
It's one that you sit and you do sit and ponder. I never thought I'd have this with the ending of a Bond movie. Funnily enough, the only other Bond movie I can think of where I did that, where you come on going, I'm not sure what this kind of means, like as regards this franchise, was on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Right.
Which obviously that famous thing had the we have all the time in the world moment, and they do bring up on Her Majesty's Secret Service a lot in this movie. Like they actually have like a line of dialogue. We have all the time in the world, and the music occasionally swells and gives you that "We have all the time in the world" Louis Armstrong riff. And yeah, so there's a lot of foreshadowing and calling back. It's strange if you start to dig into it and what continuity means to this franchise. Don't get me wrong, because wow, I don't want to open that can of worms. But
Yeah.
there's stuff there. I thought there's a lot going for this. I definitely would recommend going and seeing it on the biggest, most expensive screen you can find.
Yeah. Well, obviously we know James Bond, famous for action scenes, and I'm guessing this lives up to that.
It's like it's got the action scenes, and there's a new 00 that joins him. In fact, this is it, because I know they say this every time with the Bond movies, and it always drives me nuts when they wheel out the female cast members, and in the press they always do these aren't your usual Bond girls, these ones do, and like, every time it's always a disappointment. Lashana Lynch actually lives up to the hype for a change, and don't get me wrong, Ana de Armas, who turns up for I think 2 or 3 scenes, does a big action number, is literally removed from the movie by saying aloud the lines, "Okay, I'm done here, I'm going to go now," and she leaves. But Lashana Lynch, before she does that, though, she's great. And Lashana Lynch, though, is worth the movie on her own, because she's sort of the new 007. She's the new agent that has earned that title of 007.
Yeah.
And obviously Bond then comes back into the mix, and he's 00 nothing, I think they call him at one point. Or 00 has been, or something like that. And it is about, he's not 007 anymore. So there's this sort of fun, riffing identity crisis thing back and forth about when someone calls out 007, they both answer at the same time kind of thing. And she does stand toe-to-toe with him, and Daniel Craig's getting on in years. He's 53. It's not a spring chicken. So obviously it does help to have someone, younger and more in her peak, absolutely, owning him. And it works. It really does.
I've heard a few people say that they think this is the best performance Daniel Craig has ever given as a Bond. Would you agree with that?
It's the most acting any Bond has ever had to do. I will say that's a very important distinction, because you've got to remember that until Timothy Dalton came around, none of these guys ever actually tried acting. Okay, they were all played like Hitchcock movies in the 60s, in the 70s. They were all played like, okay, now we're just cheap Brit thrillers. We'll adapt to whatever genre is a thing. In the 80s, that stopped being fashionable. Timothy Dalton came along, and they thought, okay, now we're going to have to try actually doing some drama with this. And it's only since then, Brosnan, I would argue, is the only one that I think has nailed the balance between I'm going to try acting and doing an action movie. Daniel Craig is more of a dramatic actor. Don't get me wrong, he can do the physical stuff. He's brilliant at it.
Yeah.
But you're not really entertained by it as such. It's not an appealing hook for this character in that sense. But he does get the most acting to do of any Bond. I can genuinely say that.
See, I always find your movie reviews are a bit like a meal in a restaurant. You get like a nice big plate of chips and a really fresh battered sausage, but then there's always a serving of Brussels sprouts on the side. What are the Brussels sprouts in this? Are there any?
Oh, okay. First of all, I'm going to say that caveat on this. When I say I'm a Bond fan, I think the Bond series kind of hits its stride with GoldenEye. I think GoldenEye is the perfect Bond movie. I think that's what a Bond movie should be. And that's in spite of the fact that has some loose continuity to it within the franchise. The Daniel Craig movies are not as enjoyable for me as Bond movies because they are all continuity driven. Casino Royale is the first Bond movie that genuinely has a sequel.
Yeah.
Which is a mystifying idea to me, that there is actually a part 2 of a Bond movie, Quantum of Solace, which, if you can avoid seeing it, your life will be better off for it. It's a terrible, terrible movie. And then you get Skyfall that follows it, which again is a part 3. That's like a trilogy capper. Even though its villain doesn't seem to be connected. And then you come to part 4, which is again terrible. And that's when they decide, okay, our continuity this time around, we're going to try and link everything together, even though that last one wasn't connected. This one, they're trying to do the same thing. This one is a sequel to a sequel to a sequel that didn't really count as a sequel, that then had to be retroactively crowbarred in as a sequel. And all those frays, all those fraying edges, all those seams do show. And they show in things like continuity, and they show when you have stock dialogue like Felix Leiter and James Bond palling around saying, oh, we've been friends for so long and you're the only guy I can trust. And you're thinking, dude, you spent an hour together over a weekend 15 years ago. Like, really? And then, and when they bring up like Vesper Lind and how traumatized Bond is by this, and like, you, Adam, you tell me, sir. Okay, think about, just imagine a girlfriend you had, just a hookup you had for a weekend 15 years ago. If you were still hung up on that, people would think that was odd. But when it's James Bond, this is apparently a defining character trait, to just be hung up on. I know that she died tragically and there was a revenge mission and all that good stuff, cool. But it's still, you hooked up with this lady for a weekend in Switzerland, back in the noughties. Like, let's move on, pal.
Get over it.
Yeah, really.
But I mean, on the whole, then, anyone who's listening right now to your review on this, you would definitely say it is worth going to see.
I would say definitely. And if you're a Daniel Craig fan, if you've been enjoying the Daniel Craig movies, then I would say definitely more of that. It's more in line with that. If we're going with just the Daniel Craig movies, this is not as good as Skyfall. It's about on par with Casino Royale, maybe, but it's definitely better than Spectre, and it's certainly better than Quantum of Solace. You've got to give it that. Craig's a good Bond. He gets to go out on a high, I think. Like, he goes out in a good stride.
Yeah.
I think the franchise is left in a good enough state, I think, as well. So Ray Fiennes, Naomi Harris, I think it is. I almost said Naomi Campbell. Naomi Harris. And then Naomi Watts. I get my Naomis confused. There are too many Naomis at the moment. Naomi Harris as Moneypenny, but apparently Ben Whishaw as Q is an uncertain thing. He's thought about not potentially coming back, which I think is a shame, because he's very good and he actually gets some time to shine. And we actually get a bit of an insight into what Q's like as a person as well, which is a new rare thing. But I think it's a win. I think it's a good enough end for the Craig movies.
So people can see it now in the cinemas everywhere.
Tomorrow. It comes out tomorrow. Don't send them down. They've already had to take on new staff. Those new staff have a day left of training. Don't you rush them. It's from midnight tonight. I know that Cineworld chains, so I'd imagine that certain Odeon ones as well. From midnight tonight, or 1 minute past, or 5 minutes past, you can see No Time to Die. If you can get to see it in IMAX, or super screen, or whatever the deluxe, 48 mega sized Duplo screen is that you can get to.
Of course.
Absolutely do spring the extra few quid for it. It's worth it. This is a huge, huge movie. And like you said, that opening set piece with the, jumping over bridges on bikes, and you gotta see, it's great.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much for letting us know your thoughts on this, Van, after going to the premiere last night. And of course, we'll be back with you on Friday with this week's new releases that we can look at over the weekend.
Which saves me some time now as well, because I get to just repeat this. Can I just copy and paste? till the next time, anyway. Good stuff.
Copy and paste. Thank you very much, Van. We'll chat to you on Friday. Right, it is 3:50 with ABBA. Don't Shut Me Down.